Hello, hello. Good morning, my people. How we doing? How's everybody doing today? I can't hear any of y'all.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. What's up, mama?
What's up, baby? How you doing?
Epic. How's your Friday so far?
Excellent. I just got done packing for camping, so I'm like ready and raring to go.
Hell yeah. Georganne is in the house. Good morning.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. I have to say, I have not seen a sunrise in I don't know how many years. So this is new for me.
And you know what? I want to tell you a quick fun fact. So when I heard you speak for the first time at the first X Endurance Summit, that was like this month, like 5 people. so we live in Cali and we went to Scottsdale for that, and we realized that the sun goes up like an hour earlier by you guys than it does by us. It's like completely bright at 4 a.m. I'm like, shit. I'm like, baby, am I the only one?
Yeah, it's bad. That's why I'm like, no, I like sunsets. Like in Arizona, all like sunsets are just as beautiful, so I'll just wait for those.
It's true. Who in here has been to Arizona? Whoever's in the room. Anybody? Comment in the chat box.
Never.
Nobody?
Oh my God.
It's beautiful.
Who's been to Arizona? Arizona is
it's bad.
Carissa says she has.
Carissa, all the way from Big Bear. Whoever's in the room, can you do us a favor and just drop in the comment box and tell us where you all from? And also, it's Memorial Day weekend. So, Georganne, we'll start this in like 2 minutes.
Okay.
But before, let's talk about your Memorial Day weekend plans. What do you have going on? Do you have anything going on, Georganne?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Anyway, I thought you were just talking. I was like, okay. No, actually, like, not really. Because I'm usually in season. I'm usually competing, so I never celebrate. I never get the chance to. So I'm like, this is new. I'm actually in the country for that. But no, I don't really have any plans.
How about the rest of us in the room? Anybody's got any plans? I know that
We got Cali's, we got Texas, we got Texas.
We got New York. We got Arizona.
Yeah.
What's in your cup of coffee? Is that coffee?
Oh, yeah, it is. It's just black coffee, and I just put a little bit of creamer. It's Starbucks caramel, like, macchiato creamer, just so I feel like I'm at Starbucks with my Starbucks cup.
Are you a Starbucks person?
I am because, okay, I am so simple, and I'm not, like, a coffee connoisseur, so I don't like those super, super strong stuff. Sure. So, like, this is just good enough for me. Like, Starbucks is like, okay. And I buy the beans and everything, and then, like, my coffee pot just, like, crushes them and everything. So, it's good. So, it's like I got my own little Starbucks.
I love it. Amazing. All right. Let me get set up real quick, and then we will get this party started. So,
I'm going to go hide on the side like I do in the interviews. But I'm here with you, and you're looking good, and I'm excited for this.
Oh, I'm so excited, too. This will be fun.
Yeah, we're going to have, my goal is to really connect with you in a way that, and ask you some questions that will really make, the people listening and watching this later too, because this will be put on YouTube later on today as well, to think differently, because I know that from your experiences, there is a lot we can learn. So for one, thank you so much for taking your time to join us this morning, and in your case too, to, see a sunrise, which, yeah. So long. I know that when you're a high performer, like, you're so used to having a routine. So, like, I'm sure that now today your routine is going to be, all sorts of out of whack because of this. And we're extremely grateful for that. So thank you. But guys, if you haven't seen the post, today we have a very special guest. Her name is Georganne Moline. She's an Olympic track and field athlete. You run the 400-meter sprint and the 400-meter hurdle. correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you were in the 2012 games. So, you know, when we always get started with an interview, what I like to do is I like to understand basically like your journey and how it began. So, you know, you're an elite athlete, you're incredible at what you do, but let's take it back a couple years back to when you just got introduced to the sport. So for one, how did you get introduced to track and field in the first place? How old were you? Like, how did that come about?
Yeah. So I mean, growing up, I think everyone kind of did, maybe, I don't know, but in my world, everyone would race each other in like the street. It's like, who's faster, and let's race the boys. And so I knew I was fast and I liked to run, but it wasn't until high school that I actually joined track and then some type of team. And I just knew, like, I knew everyone made the team. So I was like, okay, I can't get cut. Like, that's a plus. So that's the sport for me. I'll do that. And yeah, it's really interesting how, like, how I even got introduced to the hurdles, because for me, I mean, I was always kind of tall. I'm 5'10", and the coach was like, oh, you're tall, like you should do hurdles. But come to find out, he recruited everyone for hurdles because nobody wanted to do them. Everyone hated the hurdles. So I kind of got like stuck with them, and I was like, okay, I guess I'll do them. And then I hated them. Because, I mean, it's not natural to go sprint over something and, like, what? And it was, like, the worst experience, and I wanted to quit. And my mom told me, she's like, well, you gave him your word, didn't you? And I said, yeah, I did. And she's like, okay, then you have to finish out this season, and you can decide not to do it next year. And I was like, fine, okay. But that year I ended up making state, so it ended up being, like, wow, really cool. Yeah, and I was like, okay. And, you know, we like things we're good at. So yeah, as I was getting better at it, I was like, oh, I think I like this. Oh, okay. And that's just kind of how I fell into it.
So you guys, Georganne, you're bringing a couple of really good points. So for one, I hear the concept of integrity. So I can only help but to assume that based off of that, you know, the physical environment in which you grew up in consisted of a lot of integrity. Like your mom called you out when you're like, I don't want to do this. She's like, well, you committed to it, so you're going to continue, right?
Yeah.
Has it always been that way, like having really high integrity with, you know, what you say and what you do?
Oh, totally. Because that's, at the end of the day, that's what you have is your word, you know, and if you're not good on your word, then I mean, what do you really have, you know? And so, you know, my whole family are Marines. So like, that is just what it is. Like you're going to do this, you know? And I mean, there's just like a one way to kind of do things. And so I think she kind of instilled that in me based on her kind of background too.
Yeah, sure. And then the other really cool thing that you said, and I personally agree with it, is, you know, we like to do things that we are good at.
Yeah, totally.
So like, you know, whoever is listening right now, comment yes in the chat box if you, like, when you go to the gym, you like to do more of the movements that you're good at. And maybe you even avoid the ones that you're not so good at because it crushes our ego. But, you know, I guess we can say that this question is going to be a little selfish because I would like to learn that for myself since I've never done hurdles. What is it like? I mean, it kind of looks like, you know, deer's just like, you know, jumping, like how high is a hurdle?
So my race is the 400-meter hurdle. So those are 30 inches. And it seems small if you look at them. Well, I mean, maybe it's just to me because I've gone over them for I don't know how long, but they don't seem really tall. But when you're in the race and you're the last like 200 meters and you start to get tired and fatigue sets in and you're like, oh gosh, they look like they're like 10 feet tall. You're like, how am I? And you just stare at it like, how am I supposed to get over that? Like, it's like the craziest thing. But yeah, they're 30 inches. And then the high hurdles, the 100-meter hurdles, they also have 10 hurdles. Those are 33. Wow. So yeah.
So, I mean, that requires strength, endurance, explosiveness, power, mobility.
Totally. Yeah. Which is why I like it. It's kind of like, you know, you get it all. And it's like kind of like plyometrics too. I mean, you just get everything.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a random question. Is the shirt that you're wearing a Lululemon shirt?
It's actually not. So I'm sponsored by Adidas, so I can only wear Adidas. But it actually is like, I'm doing the whole, I'm totally wearing like sweatpants with like, I got to wear like a normal shirt. But this is like, I don't even know what this is. Just like a shirt that I usually wear with jeans typically.
Yeah, because
it kind of looks like it, huh?
I have a Lululemon shirt that looks just like that. And I was like, you know what? Like, I have to ask this question before I keep getting distracted by this shirt. I'm like, is she wearing my shirt? Are we wearing the
You
same?
should have worn it today, and then we would have totally just connected like this.
I know. I should have gotten the memo.
I know. It's okay.
Next time. Okay. So basically the first year where you started, you got introduced to doing hurdles because everybody got recruited to this one thing. You ended up to state championship, right?
Yeah.
Teresa, if you can do me a favor and please mute yourself. I just muted you. But obviously that tells us that you're very talented naturally as well at what you do. Would you agree?
Yeah, I do. I think talent does play. I think there's things I got away with in high school because I wasn't really coordinated and I was like not very strong and powerful, that I did get away because of talent. So yeah, I would say that definitely plays a role. But
let's talk about the concept of hard work.
Oh yeah.
Talent. You know, so talent can only get you so far. Now, you know, I'm a huge believer that success is not something that happens by accident. It's something that you create. And in fact, I believe that anything in life happens for you and because of you, right? So maybe talent got you big, but you know, let's fast forward real quick. Christina, if you can please mute yourself, that would be amazing. You know, it requires vision, it requires discipline, commitment, persistence, hard work. So like, let's say, you know, on your first year when you just got started and you made it through to states, did you ever have a vision of going to the Olympics?
You know, no, I have to be honest, because for me, it was something like when I was in high school, that was just something that I watched on TV I could never fathom myself being that, because I didn't look like those people. I thought I was made fun of growing up. I was really skinny to the point where people told me like, you look anorexic and bulimic, and they would grab my wrist and be like, God, you're so disgusting, like really bad, you know? And so I've always just kind of been insecure about myself and never thought I could accomplish something like that, because I mean, well, how could I, you know? So for me, that was never a thought in my brain until literally college. And yeah, high school, I was just like, oh, this is fun. And it wasn't until my senior year that I learned that you could get scholarships and that you could, you know, I could pay for school. And the way I grew up, I just knew that my mom would have to get like 5 jobs to put me through college or take out a bunch of loans. And so I was like, wow, that could be kind of cool if, you know, I could get that paid for. And that was kind of my thought process.
Cool. Okay. So I want to dive a little deeper into that. So in high school, you kind of just did your thing because you got recruited into it. You were talented, so you already made it to the next level. But then you didn't really have a vision of going to the Olympics until way later in college. However, I can only help but to assume that, you know, having found out from your coach that you can make it to college, you know, possibly on a full ride by being an athlete, it now kind of like sparked a fire under your ass to perform.
Oh, yeah.
Because like, I don't want my mom to, you know, have 5 jobs to pay off for my college tuition, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, you know, track and field or hurdles at this point was kind of like your gateway to success in life while not feeling like a burden for the family, correct?
Oh yeah, completely.
Amazing. So you guys, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because Georganne now had a big why. So something that we always say is always get back to your why. Right? Like a lot of times in life, you know, we get to a point where we want to give up or things get hard. But Georganne had such a big why, right? She didn't want her mom to, you know, work 5 jobs, and she did want to be successful. So she's like, I'm going to use this gift that I had, right? Obviously, first year, like competing, you make it to state, like, right? To create something for myself without feeling like I'm adding more stress, you know, to the ones that I love. So real quick, let's also talk about the relationship that you have with your family. Like, you know, for one, are you close with your family? And for two, like, what made you feel that obligation aside from the fact that you don't want to be a burden?
Yeah, I think for me, I never fit in, or so I didn't feel like I fit in, and I didn't know my purpose in life. I felt like it was hard for me to even answer the question, who am I? And like you said, like, it's so funny you talk about your why, because my college coach, who's like a dad to me, and he always talks about like, what's your why? You have to know what that is, and you have to always go back to it when you get anxiety or whatever. So for me, I'm really close with my family. My mom is my best friend. You know, my siblings, I'm the youngest, and I didn't really grow up with them. But now that we're older, you know, we're a lot closer, but they live all around the United States. And then I have family in Illinois and Missouri and stuff. So, but family's huge to me, because at the end of the day, and we'll probably get into it, but when I have anxiety and the things that I go through, I went through some really dark times. And if it wasn't for my family just reassuring me that I'm worthy of greatness, and like I'm worthy of being loved, and like I'm worthy of such amazing things, then I probably would have quit a long time ago, because it just became too much for me. I didn't know how to separate, like, my worth depended on my performance, and it was really hard for me to find my worth as a human being. And okay, also one thing you should know about me, I go on rants, so I don't even know if I answered your question.
Great, yes, you did, you did. So it sounds like so far, you know, your family is not just your safe place, but it sounds like your family keeps you grounded.
Oh, completely. Yeah.
Maybe we will get to those dark points, you know, as we keep this conversation going. And of course, if this feels like in alignment, if you feel comfortable talking about it, but you know, you guys, like, surrounding yourself in a community, whether it's the one that you're born into or you physically put yourself in, that grounds you, is essential for anybody in life, because we all go through some shit. We all go through tough times, right? And, you know, you need to be sheltered by, you know, this community to kind of like get you through the storm, because the winter is coming. Okay, so you went to college. Now, where did you go to college?
University of Arizona.
Yeah. Okay, so I can only help but to assume that you were in varsity as soon as you got there?
Well, the way it kind of works is like everyone, there's no like JV varsity. It's like you're just part of the team. And I should note that I was the weakest link on the team. You know, I came from high school where I had won state championships in both hurdles my junior and senior year. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a big fish in a little pond. And I come to college and it was not the same experience by any means.
Okay, so this is a really good point. So my mentor always said, Suri, if you're the biggest fish in a room, then you're in the wrong room.
Yes.
Now, so, you know, you basically came into college from being the biggest fish in the room to being the littlest fish in the room.
Yeah.
Now, how did that help you evolve?
Oh my gosh. I mean, there's so many different factors that truly help me shape me into who I am. But I, like anyone else, like I do not like for people to put pity on me. So when I'd get like the pity clap after like sessions, like, come on, Georganne, or we're doing circuits, and they're like, come on, Georganne, you got this. And I'm like, this is so embarrassing. I was like, I refuse to be embarrassed like this. And so I don't like being bad at things. And I think that has been something through my injuries and everything I've gone through, is that the things I was bad at and the things I was weak at, I would get so frustrated. And I'm like, nope, I'm going to put all my focus into this because I'm going to make these weaknesses my strength. And I refuse to like, just, like not really think about it or just let it slide by. Like, no, we're fixing this. But it really, really molded me into the athlete I am, because I can't even explain to you. I went into workouts like crying the day before because I'm like, I don't want to go into tomorrow's practice because I couldn't finish the practices. And so you're going in with your mentality like already you're losing, because already my mind is like, I don't have this. And then I go into it and then I don't have it. And so it was like a lose-lose. And you kind of just get sick of it, like I just kind of got sick of feeling that way. I got sick of being scared and hating track and being like, why did I do this? I was like, okay, something has to change. Let's start to make changes because this isn't working.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So this is really good. I love how you bring up all these topics because I'm just gonna dive into it. So I'm sure that at this point, anybody in the room can relate to this. If it's not within your fitness journey, it's within your weight loss journey, right? Like, how many times did you want to throw in the towel because, for one, you were comparing yourself to somebody else and you had this expectation that you're just not enough. So you went in with this mentality of, I'm not enough. And like Georganne said, like that mentality, like only made it worse, right?
Really?
So then, right, what she did is she turned her weaknesses into strengths. So, I'm sure there is like a journey that you can walk us through. So like, give us an example, like what was something that you were weak at? Like if we can compare it to like, let's say somebody else or like whatever the standard was, and like how much work did it require for you to put in?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is just injuries. I've gone through so many injuries, and one was like my first year, a stress fracture, and even just lifting. I remember I had never lifted in my life, and I come to college and we're doing Olympic lifts and power. I'm like, what is this? I didn't even know the form, and I was terrible at it, to be honest. And so that was something that my coach always says to me too. He's like, Georganne, even when I'm warming up or anything I do, it's so deliberate. You look at me and you're like, gosh, you think she's getting ready for a meet, but we're just at practice and it's an easy day. But it's because like I wanted to truly understand how to do these things, whether it was lifting or form for running, because I used to run like with cupped hands. Like I used to have the weirdest running form, and I was so set on fixing it that I thought about it every rep, because I kept saying to myself, okay, just like 1,000 reps will help me get that much better. It'll be muscle memory. Okay, 1,000 more and 1,000 more. So like, that's all I thought about. And so lifting is now like my favorite thing. I mean, I love lifting. I post it all over my social media and people are like, is that all you do? I'm like, oh no, sorry. I just like posting about it because I've just come so far. And, but yeah, I think with that, I mean, those were definitely weaknesses when I was doing certain lifts, like, oh my God, rear foot elevated split squats, like single leg squat. Oh my gosh, the worst, because it's isolated. And I'm like, okay, my right leg is so much weaker than my left. I hated them. I'd get frustrated. And I'm like, and I started thinking, I was like, oh my gosh, this is an opportunity to run faster and to get stronger, because if this right leg can get just as strong as my left, oh man, I'm going to be like a monster on the track. So I just would think of it as like just opportunities. Like even to this day, when I go into a race and people are like, you're professional, you've been doing this for how long? But I love the fact that I can finish a race, be happy with it, but also be like, oh man, if I would have just done this differently and like, there's room for improvement, I know that I can get better, because that's boring to be like, oh, it's perfect. No, like that doesn't exist, first off. But
man, you're speaking so much gold. So now, by the way, you guys, if you're not taking any notes, I recommend that you take a notepad right now, because golden nuggets are going to come at you at a very rapid pace. So for one, mindset is everything, because when shit gets hard, you have two choices. Most people will throw in the towel, right? Georganne was the little fish in a very big pond, right? She could have thrown in the towel, but this is something that I'm going to take from my own personal life. I'm going to call it the 1,000 rep theory. Like, if you're bad at something, like practice it for 1,000 reps and you're going to get better. Now, Ernest Hemingway once said, when I write a book, right, in order for me to write good 5 pages, I'm going to have to write 95 pages ahead of time. And that's when I start writing really.
I like that.
So like most of us go into like a challenge of any sort in life, whether it be like increasing your weight in the lift or running a faster mile or losing 50 pounds, right? Expecting to win. Now it's great to expect that. However, right, unless you've mastered everything, the only thing you need to expect is failure and struggle, right? But when that hits you, you have 2 choices. You can either give up. We know that that's not going to get you anywhere, right? Georganne could have given up. How would that have helped her, right? But instead, she made the choice to turn her weaknesses into her strength. So like she put in the work, she worked way harder, and eventually she got better, right? So it's not about the short term instant gratification, but rather about where you're going to be in the long term. And I think that's what people always fail to recognize, and that's what the greats always do. They invest more time and energy and effort into their weaknesses, and they turn them into their strengths. We can't ignore that. We can't ignore that. Otherwise, we're never going to get better at it. Now, another thing that I want to add is Georganne talks about setbacks. So you guys ready for this? In life, there's no such thing as a setback. It's called a stepping stone. So Georganne took these setbacks, right, and turned it into a stepping stone by creating an opportunity for herself to get better. So she did all 1,000 reps of what? Rear elevated split squats?
Yeah.
That's
oh man,
reps.
I hated them. Yeah, and now I love them. Like they're like my favorite.
So first you're gonna hate something that you suck at, and then you're gonna love them. But you're gonna embrace the suck. And like Georganne said, it took her about 1,000 reps to start liking it.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love it. Okay, so I mean, obviously you were talented, but then when you got yourself to a point where you were surrounded by a pool of other talented people, perhaps talented people who were more experienced than you, because you literally had what, like 1 or 2 years of experience on your plate, you realized you're like, shit, I got a lot of room to basically grow, and I got to put in the work. So now let's go basically from freshman year going into senior year. Like, what changes have happened, like within your mindset, and also like the results in which you've achieved?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. So it's so cool because I mean, even I get so emotional thinking about, like you said, the setbacks like that I've gone through, because I kept, you know, at the beginning, my freshman year, it was like, why is this happening to me? And then my mindset changed to, this is happening for me. Like, why is this happening for me? Like, right? Like, what do I need to learn here? And so I'm not saying like we're human. So in the moment, yeah, you're damn right. Like, I'm mad and I'm like, this sucks. I'm pissed. Like, but you know what? Like, when you can take a step back, it's like such a beautiful thing that's happened. So for me, it was that mindset, but I didn't do it alone. And I could never take credit for that because, you know, like I said, my family, I got a psychologist. Thank God we had like, you know, access to a psychologist, because she really changed my life. And then, you know, I got a life coach, but that was like later on after, which I still talk to, and he's awesome. But my diet changed too. So when I got injuries, I remember my coach telling me, like, even the first year of college, I was still working hard, but my job ended when I stepped off the track or when I got out of the weight room. And then after that, it was like, I was, you know, partying and doing whatever I wanted. So it wasn't until like I took it serious 24/7, where it was like, okay, my diet has to change. I got to get good sleep. You know, I got to do good recovery. I got to really work my mind. That's when I started to see these changes. When I didn't do just enough. So, yeah, I would say through every injury though. Oh yeah, like I was saying, sorry, I told you I go on tangents. But
No, you're doing great.
my coach told me, he's like, you know, my freshman year, I was still, like I said, doing just enough. And then sophomore year, kind of, and he pulled me aside. He's like, I can't want this more than you, Georganne. I'm going to give it everything. And I'm going to continue to give it everything. But you're different, and you need to know that you're different. And if you're willing to really make some changes and put in the work, you're going to be the best to ever do this event. And I'm like, wait, is he saying what I think he's saying? Like, what? This man's crazy. Like, what is he talking about? And I was like, okay. And it just like clicked. You know, it just has to click for you too. And I just remember it clicked that day in his office. And I was like, okay, like he cares about me. And he wants this for me, but I have to want it. And that's when I started making changes. You know, when my friends would go out on the weekends, or, hey, let's go do wing night and pizza night. And don't get me wrong, I still eat pizza and wings, okay? But back then I had to make changes because I was doing that all the time. And so I stayed at home, and I had my chicken or fish, rice, and like broccoli, because that's all I knew at the time. Like, what's healthy? That's all I knew. And yeah, and I was just like strong in my beliefs that like, hey, I am so easily persuaded sometimes with my friends and stuff. And back then I was like, I have to really, the people who love me will understand. And that's when you start to see some people leave your life, but the really great people stay. And I'm like, no, the people that love me, as long as, you know, I really just talk with them and say what I want and explain to them really what I want out of this, I know they'll understand. And they did. So yeah, I would say, you know, as far as sleep and diet and mental and all that stuff, I mean, all of that really had to change for me. I had to make those. And one more thing too, and I feel like I want to make this really clear, is I feel like some people, so I still work out with the U of A team, you know, and I love it so much. It's awesome. And I know some of them are, you know, they think like, oh my God, I have to make all these changes right at once. And it's like, no, that becomes so overwhelming. You just have to make little changes. Like I tell them, I'm like, you know, they come to me and they're like, Georganne, I just eat out all the time. And I'm like, hey, how about this? Pick one meal, pick dinner, let's say. And every day you just cook dinner. And you can do whatever you want for the other meals, but just dinner, you know that you're at least putting in something healthy in your body. Start there. And then before you know it, you want to cook your breakfast. And you know what I mean? And it's just, you can't get overwhelmed with the process. It has to be a step at a time. Or else it just becomes too much.
Consistency is key. You guys, does this sound familiar? Amazing. I'm so glad you're bringing this up. Okay, so you just said so many good things. So it's like we go through one tangent, and then like I extract really good points.
Oh yeah.
So I want to do a quick recap of some of the things that you're saying, because you're just speaking pure gold and I'm loving it. So for one, you guys, you can't get better without making sacrifices. So many people, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. Okay, what are you willing to sacrifice? You're not willing to sacrifice anything. The reality is you don't want it. You're saying that you want it, but if you're not willing to make the sacrifice, then you don't really want it. So like for anybody who's listening, right, if there's something that you keep saying to yourself, I want this in life, I want to take it one step further. Ask yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, okay, how much do I really want this? Okay, 1 being little bit, 10 being I will do anything to get it. And that's when you know that you want it. Anything that's 8 or below, you don't want it. It just sounds like a good idea in your head. Something I always say is everybody says that they want abs, but only a few are actually willing to do whatever it takes. And I know that you get it because, girl, I've seen your abs.
I love you.
Okay, so remember, you want something, like assess on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do I really want it? Like, get real with yourself. Like, you know, commit to the commitment more than the story that you tell yourself. Okay, so sacrifice is key. Also, so a really cool point that you brought, and I'm sure that for anybody who's listening, or at least most of the people listening, they can relate. The best invest in themselves, and the more you invest in yourself, the better results you will receive, right? And that's just like for anything in life, whether it's like a weight loss program or like in your case, like, you know, like a life coaching program or anything in life. You guys, we don't know what we don't know. And if we don't invest in ourselves, then we're left to our own devices, right? And something that we always say is if you're not learning, you're not growing, right? So like take all of these nuggets and really like apply it to your life. Like you want to get better, okay. The first thing you're going to have to do is invest in yourself, right? So take the time, put in the effort, but first ask yourself, am I like, do I really want this on a scale of 1 to 10? Are you willing to make the sacrifice? Because you're going to have to you're going to have to invest one of 3 resources or all 3 of them, right? Time, energy, money. The more you invest, the more you get in return. That's just the reality of it. Also, something else that you said that was super important is as you evolved, the people that you started hanging around with your environment changed, like your social environment.
Oh yeah.
So sometimes in life we get stuck in a social situation because, you know, we keep on feeding this story to ourselves that, you know, we're going to disappoint them and whatever, and we don't want to make somebody else feel bad. But the reality is that the ones who love you don't care, and the ones who care don't love you.
Yeah.
And you just need to accept it. Like the people who wanted Georganne to do her best supported her not going out to eat pizza and wings. The ones who cared, they didn't care about her being successful. They were naysayers. And there is nothing wrong with naysayers, but when you want something so bad and you're committed to it, you ain't got time for that shit.
No.
Yeah. So real quick, okay, so we just went through your journey with college. Okay, so, you know, we got to a point where obviously, like, it sounds like your coach believed in you before you believed in yourself.
Oh yeah.
And I think that that's a really important thing. Like when somebody sees something in you and like they tell you that, to me, I really resonate with it. Some of you guys in the room might resonate with it, but it probably made you feel more in charge when you're so doubtful, right? So now going from, you know, competing at the college level, which is amazing, to competing at the Olympic level, it's like now we're like taking it to the next level, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you know the stats, but I want to ask you anyways. Like, do you know, like roughly, like let's say competitive high school track and field athletes, like how many of those are there in the US and how many actually make it to the US national team?
Oh, yeah. like you mean like Olympic trials type of Team USA, like? Yeah. I mean, less than 1%. I mean, you know what I mean? It's very, I'm not sure the exact, but I mean, it's very little. That's why I didn't think I was even that person, you know? It's like, okay, let's be real here. Because that was my mentality, which was such a crappy mentality. Like, really? Then why are you even doing it? Coach Harvey always says that. It's like, well, if you don't think you're going to win, he always says he's like, they hold races for a reason. If that person was supposed to win, they would just hand them the medal and say, here you go, have a great day. But they don't do that. And you're in the race, which means you have a chance. And he has no like patience for that. He's the most patient man I know, but he has no patience for like, well, I don't know. It's like, oh, no. Then you might as well not race. Don't do it. Just stay out there. It's fine. It's like, you know, and so, anyways, I don't know the exact stats or what, but it's very little people that kind of go on to it too. I think that's why I had that mentality.
Yeah, I think so. I did some research before
okay.
But I mean, since you're in it, you will have a better idea. But I think they said that, you know, to make it to the, you know, U.S. Olympic team for track and field, there's like only 25 athletes.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I didn't know that's what you were asking. Sorry. It's like
my apologies. English is a second language. So sometimes like it sounds perfect in my head, but don't know.
I'm the same way. I'm like, it made sense here. How did you not like connect that? Like, I'm the same way. Yeah, and then from there, to make the Olympic team, only 3 people make it. But you have to be good on that day. So you have to go through a preliminary round, a semifinal, and then in the final, you have to be top 3. But not only do you have to be top 3, you also have to have the A standard, which is a time that everyone around the world has to have in order to go to the Olympics. So let's say for whatever, the USA, we're so stacked that typically all 3 people have the A standard, you know what I mean? But there's cases where someone takes 3rd and they don't have that standard and they can't go, you know what I mean? So it's like even another thing that you have to do before making that team.
Sure. So, I'm just going to use like rough estimates, right?
Okay.
Let's say, there is 25,000 varsity track and field athletes, 25,000 on any given year, right? But from a pool of 25,000 people, only 25 people get to make it to the national team, correct?
Yeah.
So we're talking about like 0.001%, you guys, just to make it to the team. And then you were talking about, do you mind repeating the qualifying rounds that you were just talking about? Only 3 actually get to go?
Only 3. You can't take more than 3. Yep.
So out of that 0.001%, we're now like taking 8% of 0.003. So like you have to be so good. And that's why these numbers matter, because it helps to bring into perspective, like the amount of work and dedication and discipline and perseverance that's required of anybody to make it to such a caliber. And that's why I love interviewing elite athletes, because you think differently. Like you go through so much adversity, but for 1, your why is so strong. For 2, the amount of effort and sacrifice that you put into it is so great. And that's what people don't understand, especially in this era, right? Like in the social media era, everybody says they want to be successful. Everybody says they want this and that, but like, let's look at everything underneath the iceberg, right? Like how she lives, how she thinks, who she surrounds herself with. And that's what it takes, you guys. So, okay, fast forward to you making it to the national team, right? Like how does that whole process work? So, you talked about it numbers wise, but like, does it take like 4 years to like decide who goes? Like,
so no, so you're talking like Olympic trials to go to the Olympics, correct?
yes.
Okay. So the Olympic trials, so you have 1 full year to get the Olympic trial standard to be invited, like top 25, to be invited to the trials.
Okay.
So you just have to reach that time or be top 25, whatever, from that whole year. So once you're like, the top and you get to go to the trials, from the trials, what was I saying? What was your, oh my gosh, see, I told you. Wait, your question
No, that's fine. Like the process of.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, you had that full year, and then at the trials. So everyone's been asking me too. They're like, "Oh, are you going to the next Olympics?" I'm like, "Well, it's not guaranteed. Like countries do it differently. There's some countries where as long as you have the A standard, because they don't have very many representatives who get that in certain events, right, then they get to go. But the U.S. just does it differently, where you have to be good on that day. So let's say I broke the world record 2 weeks ago, okay, and I have the trials in 2 weeks, and I go to the trials and I just have a crap day and I fall over a hurdle, I don't make the team. It doesn't matter if I'm the best in the world, I don't make the team. And so the trials is typically, excuse me, like a month before the Olympic Games, or, a month, it depends, but not a month. And so you just have to be good on those days. You have to make it to the final and be top 3, and just, that's why it's so stressful. I think making the team is so much more stressful than actually going to the Olympics. It's like, okay, I already went through like that crap. Like I got to do it again, but now it's like fun because I'm already here,
Right.
But yeah, yeah, it's kind of intense.
Well, I didn't know that. So it's amazing because you always learn something new. So I want to make a point because I know that a lot of people can relate to this. You know, and this is probably something that you hear very often. Like, how many times have you heard somebody in life saying, 10 years ago, I used to be in such great shape, but now I'm whatever.
Yeah.
Or I used to do blah, blah, blah until so-and-so happened to me.
Yeah.
Guys. And that's why, like, you know, I love this whole like concept of being an Olympic athlete, because look, it doesn't matter if you broke a world record last week. If right now, like, your performance sucked, then like you're not in that caliber. So many people in life focus on what they did 10 years ago. It's like, dude, the reality is that like all that matters is right now. Like, what you do right now, what you did a year ago, a month ago, or 10 years ago, doesn't matter, because you're not that same person anymore. And we constantly keep on evolving. And I think that people have a hard time grasping that because they still, you know, relate themselves to, you know, who they were 10 years ago. But I'm like, you're not. So
Yeah. And what's cool too is like, not cool, but like what's interesting is that something I've learned from my coach over the years is like, you know, I had surgery, okay, on my foot less than a year ago and all this stuff. And my coach, I mean, he's the sweetest man ever, but he'll tell you like, that's, you know, like that's intense. And I know what you went through, but when you step on the line, no one actually really cares. Like when I'm in the blocks about to run, do you think my competitors are like, oh man, Georganne's out here and she just had surgery and like her foot, like she tried dealing with it. They don't care. They're still going to go out there and try to beat me. So at the end of the day, it's like we all have our own crap, you know, we all have our own things that we're going through. And I mean, whether yours may seem bigger than someone else's, I mean, it doesn't really matter because we're all going through something. And at the end of the day, are you going to do it? Like when I told my coach, like, well, coach, like, you know, when I was a freshman, I was going through injuries and it was like my first race back and I was scared and I was like, yeah, but I had this and like, I'm just not in the type of shape that I want to be in. He's like, okay, well, what are you going to do about it? Like, you just not want to run? I was like, well, no, I'm going to run. He's like, okay, then that really doesn't matter, does it? I'm like, okay, I guess it doesn't. I'm like, I guess it doesn't matter. Thanks for reminding me.
yes. So like for anybody who's listening, like, you know, if you're ever going through an adversity, right? Like take responsibility for what has happened and what's happening rather than like wasting your time and energy on this, you know, victim mentality. Now, don't get me wrong. I've done it plenty of times in my life, but I'm at a point in life when, you know, let's say something happens to me, like I take a second to think, I'm like, okay, how did I create this for myself? For one, I take full responsibility for it. And for two, what am I willing to do moving forward? Because dwelling on something, playing victim mentality, it's like so many people have wasted years of their life still living in their victim mentality where their life could have already been transformed. Yeah. Right? So you're a rock star. I love it. Now, okay, so it was obviously very stressful making it to the Olympics. Now we get an idea of like how stressful it is. And thank you for sharing that. However, when you made it to the Olympics, something that I learned about you is that you thrive under positive pressure.
Yeah.
Because your personal best, right? And tell me if I'm wrong, your personal best was actually in the finals.
Yeah.
Right? When you were with the biggest fish of the biggest fish of the world. So I'm going to read something and tell me if I got this right. So at the preliminary heat, you ended the 400-meter hurdles with a time of 54:31. By the way, it's amazing. Like when I run 400 meters, I'm like, I don't even run like, under a minute. Mind you, there's no hurdles there. So, and that was your new personal best at the prelim.
Yeah, PR'd in the prelim, yeah.
But then, you obviously placed second in the finals, which helped you to make it to the finals, because to go to the finals, you have to be either first or second. right?
In the semis, yeah. Mm-hmm.
In the semis, right. But then in the finals, you actually broke your personal best once again.
Yeah.
And you ended up making your PR at 53.92.
At the time, yep. That was my PR at the time, yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the power of positive pressure. For one, when you were going through this, like how did this positive pressure like help you to actually bring your A game?
Yeah, I think like I always go back to like my coach because I mean he's just such an important part of my life. But he told me, he's like, you know, okay, so one thing that I think I should note is that most athletes, like professional athletes, when they go through the prelim, you know, it's kind of like to weed out, and they don't have to run as fast. They just try to give 80% effort to make it to the next round, right? Yeah. And people were telling me that, like, oh, you should take it easy. But I'm thinking, no, if I can't recover in 24 hours, then I have a problem and I'm not in that good of shape. But I'm not going to go out there and just kind of give 80% and not make, you know, the next round. So I went out there, gave it my all, because my coach was like, hey, you can recover and you're going to be fine. You just go and be you. Sure. And so I went out there and they're like, oh my, I like won the heat, my prelim. And they were like, why didn't you just calm it down towards the end? I'm like, I already ran 370 meters. Why calm it down the last 30? Like, no. Anyways, I guess my point is too, is like my coach constantly told me, go out there and be you. You don't have to be anything other than you. Because in my head, I was thinking, I have to be something I'm not in order to make the final. And he's like, at the end of the day, if you don't make the final, what's the worst that's going to happen, Georganne? And I'm like, he's like, are the people that love you still going to love you? I'm like, well, yeah. He's like, and you're still the same person. Like you're, you know, I'm still going to, you know, cause I was a junior at the time. He's like, you're still going to come back to the U of A. I still have a scholarship for you. So what's the word? Like, why are you worried? You know? And so I always kept that with me, that I just have to go out there and be me. Like, how easy is that? I don't have to be anything special. Just be me. And that's how I went into each round. And even though those girls had way more experience than me, and, you know, in the final, I was the youngest in the field, I was like, okay, like, if they run faster than me, that can only help me run faster. How does that harm me in any way? Like, so what? Like, you know what I mean? I think so often we're like, oh, I don't want to be with them, like work out with them because they're stronger than me. Wait, that can only help you. Like, how is that a bad thing? You know? So for me, that's how I looked at it. I was just like, okay, I'm the smallest fish in this little pond, but whatever. And what was so cool is I had come off a whole college season. So for people that don't know, college seasons start a lot earlier and you're doing a lot of competition. So everyone was so surprised when I PR'd in the final, because they're like, you weren't supposed to do that. And I'm like, well, then what was I supposed to do? And they're like, well, and I was like, was I just supposed to go out there and not be like, what? You know? So, but they were so surprised because I had competed until like August, and that was just a long time for college. And so, but I didn't allow my mind to go to those places of like, oh my gosh, were you like, your season's long, or, oh my gosh, I dealt with an injury that year. And that's actually, I think, the reason why I made the team, and I can go into that later. But I dealt with injury, so technically I wasn't supposed to be as fit at that time. And all these things, but I didn't allow myself to really go there. I was just like, okay, but what is the deal right now? Like, who cares about what I'm supposed to do or whatever? Like, what's going on right now? And that's constantly where I kept my mind, you know?
I love it. So that's the power of perspective.
Oh, totally.
You had a positive perspective and you used it to your advantage. Now, just a side question. Do you think that finding yourself as a little fish in a big pond for the second time now seemed maybe not as much of a negative experience at the initial phase, because you are already familiar with being a little fish in a big pond?
Yeah. And I think I like to be the underdog. I was like, okay, cool. That's no pressure on me. When you're the underdog, there's no pressure. No one expects you to do anything. So for me, I was like, okay, no one expects me to do anything. Let's go do something and make people like, you know, question, who the heck is this girl? And that's kind of what they did. Like, who is Georganne Moline? Like, what? Who is this person? And I love that. I thrived off of that.
I love it. I'm going to repeat something that you said that your coach told you, and that you said it twice too. But if anybody didn't pay enough attention or you just want to hear it again, I'm going to repeat it because it's epic. You don't have to be anything other than you. It's amazing. Like, you are your unique you. Yes, you can strive to perform like somebody else. You can be inspired by somebody else. But the point is to be the best you and to celebrate that, not try to be like somebody else. That. Okay, so I truly believe that we are a byproduct of our habits, right? Basically the things that we do on a regular basis and our routines and our behaviors. So I'm super intrigued to learn about your habits. Like, how do you live your life? Because how you live your life obviously dictates your level of performance. So like morning routine, I'm sure you have one, evening routine. And then if there is anything like training routine, like, of course, you don't have to get into the details, but just to like help everybody get an understanding, like, what does it take to be the best? Like, how many routines do you follow?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. I think routine is like everything, that's how we like function as an athlete. So, waking up and having a good meal. And I cannot not eat breakfast. I'm like, okay, this sets up my whole day. And, but I also have throughout the day, I have like my appointments. Like I see the chiro, I see a functional movement specialist. I either talk to my psychologist, or my life coach once every week or once every 2 weeks, depending. And then like massage, I have to take care of my body. I do, obviously there's practice and, but my meals throughout the day are really important to me. Like food is really important to me because if I'm off a little bit and I'm like, don't have enough protein that day or carbs, like it just can totally mess up a practice. And for me, every day matters. Like I can't just like, oh, I'll practice better tomorrow. It's like, no, each day has its purpose. So, I kind of, I give myself the best opportunity for success and making sure I get good sleep. And if I nap during the day, sometimes I have to, if I have double days, and the meals and the recovery and I also have been kind of bad at it, but I'm back on it, of my habit tracker. It's so satisfying writing things down and marking it off and being like, oh, okay, I accomplished that. That's good. Okay, cool. I got some things done. Because I think often we go through our day thinking like, I didn't really do much today, but then I look at my habit tracker. I'm like, no, I did a lot. Okay. So, but as far as those types of routines are really, really important to me. And, I'm trying to think. I cook like every meal too. I don't get me wrong. Like I like sweets and I eat out sometimes, but I really enjoy eating my food. And I know that, like I know what I'm putting in my body too. So that's like important for me just mentally. But yeah, I think those are kind of my routines day to day, just kind of like appointments and little things like that, or having stretch sessions and mobility sessions with myself and things like that. But it's just so like ingrained in me now that's all I do.
Sure. And I agree with you 100%. For one, we operate in life based off of our routines. Now, most people are not even aware that they have routines. And that's how you know that their routines need to be developed and need to be cleaned up a lot. So, for you guys listening, this is really important because look at how much self-care Georganne has in her daily routine. Like, look at the amount of time and effort she puts into her self-care. Now, the reason why I want to bring this up is because of the social media era. People see a photo and they have this expectation or they desire, I want to be like, and we talked about this a little bit ago, but don't just look at a picture and think that because you worked out today, you're living like that person. Like, look at everything else that's, beneath the tip of the iceberg, because I see so many women who actually struggle to show up for themselves in their own journey because they're comparing themselves to somebody like you. And it's not fair. I'm like you said earlier, like just focus on one thing and get good at it and then focus on another thing. Mm-hmm. You've been doing this for years. And also that's why you're a world-class, like top caliber athlete, because you put that much time and effort into it.
Yeah. And I think what's important too is like, you know, you said self-care, self-love, like it is so important. One thing I've learned over time is like, I was doing all the right things as far as recovery and all that, but I was so mean to myself when I came to a practice and I didn't do a practice the way I thought I should have. I was like, you know what, you're so ungrateful. Like you've been given this gift and everything like this, and you're just going to go out there and half-ass it, or you know what I mean? And I was just so mean to myself, and it really did a lot of damage. And I think it's really important to note that you be careful what you say, because you're listening. And like, that's something I've always thought about, because I'm like, I need to be kind to myself during times when maybe I don't understand something. And that's, you know, be patient with myself, because if I'm mean to myself, then that's kind of what draws me away from certain things. Like, oh, I'm fearful of Tuesday workouts because I don't do well in them, or something like that, you know? Someone also asked about my habit tracker. Before I forget, I know someone asked a question. I was just going to say, I don't have an app for the habit tracker. It's actually one that my friend who runs 800 meters, she's awesome, also a pro athlete, but she made them. So if I can find the link, I'm sure she still has it somewhere on her Instagram. I can shoot that to you and you can share it. But it's not an app, just a book. But
okay.
Anyways, yeah.
Amazing. I love it. Okay, so a few more questions. So for one, I want to hear what is your vision for yourself? Like, do you believe that you're close to the best version of yourself? And if not, then what are you currently working on?
You know, that's a great question, because I just talked to my life coach the other day, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can see things so differently now, and I love who I'm becoming, because I dealt with a lot of trauma growing up. I mean, we all deal with our own different types of trauma, but that I brought into my adult life and trying to fill voids in certain ways. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been filling voids in all these other ways and forgetting that I have everything I need inside of me. So I'm at a point where I just love myself and I love who I become. And I know I have so much more to learn about myself, and I'm just excited for it. You know what I mean? And I'm just in a place where I feel like I'm close to it, but I feel like we'll never be exactly, you know what I mean, what we want to be, because that's the point of life. That's the point of growing. That's why you go through things, so you can learn and become stronger and resilient and learn a lot about yourself. And that's kind of what my injuries and things have taught me, is like, gosh, I'm resilient, because there's times I've been knocked down and I'm like, and I came back and I came back and I came back. And I'm like, wow, that's cool. Like, and I'm getting to know myself. It's kind of cool. I'm like, wow, I didn't know that about me. But what was your question again? You said,
that was the question.
Did I answer it?
You're basically saying that you're kind of like in this point of bliss where, you know, you're acknowledging that you're loving who you're becoming. However, you're not even close to where you want to be at.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, completely.
So now, you know, just because you're an athlete, I do want to ask you this question, because I know that quite recently, you know, you've had a foot injury, right?
Yeah.
And like, when that happens to you, like, that's obviously a setback. And, you know, we talked about setbacks being stepping stones. Like, how do you handle that?
Like injuries and dealing with that and being sidelined type of thing. Yeah. You know, it's hard. It's so hard, but every injury, from experience, every injury I've ever gone through, I have come back and I have ran faster, or I've become stronger, or I learned something about myself. And it has been, like, I always talk about opportunities, but it's been a great opportunity to just learn more about myself. And most recently, my foot, it's been an opportunity to get back to the little things that I got away from, you know, because I've been pro since 2013. And for me, it's easy when you kind of get closer to the top that you kind of get away from like the basics, but the basics are what got you here. So you got to keep doing what got you to this point. It's not like, you know, it's like, I talked to my psychologist, because I remember one session I told her, she's like, do you want to talk in a couple weeks? And I'm like, no, I think I'm good. And I kind of like stopped talking to her for a couple months. And she's like, can I ask you something? Like, if you're in the weight room and you're getting stronger, do you just stop lifting? Because you're like, oh, I'm strong now, I'm just going to stop. You don't. You keep it going. So I think this injury has taught me to just get back to, I did get kind of bad at recovering my body, you know, and things like that, and doing mobility stuff with my foot and ankles. And so it's kind of just been an opportunity to get back to that and to really be deliberate on the little things, because over time, those little things become big things.
Sure.
Yeah.
Compound effect. I love it. Okay. So one last question. Let's say if Georganne, you know, her best self, Georganne, had a message to the younger Georganne, what would that message be? If you could just have one message to share with the younger,
Yeah.
what would
Oh
that
my gosh, it like makes me tear up, because the first thing I would say to like young Georganne is that you have everything you need inside of you. You are so loved and you are so worthy of greatness. And like, yeah, it's really emotional, because I think for so long I was just like, I didn't feel like I was worthy. And so I would look back to myself. I would be kinder to myself if I could go, you know, if I could look back at young Georganne and be like, gosh, don't be so hard on yourself. It is not that, you know, this is supposed to be fun. And this life is supposed to be fun. And it's supposed to be interesting and exciting. And yeah, we go through things that make us uncomfortable, but that's where we grow. You can't, like, when you're content, you should never be like content. You should be, you know, like proud of yourself in certain situations and stuff. But if you're comfortable, really, it's okay to be uncomfortable, because that's an opportunity for growth, and that's an opportunity to help shape you into the person you're meant to be. And so, yeah, I would just kind of look at myself and just be like, Georganne, just smile, be happy, be excited, and like, you know, be present. Because so often I would live in the future, like the Olympics is in a year, and I'm like, okay, well, what about today? What am I going to do today? Because the Olympics is in a year and I can't control that. And just really focus on the things I can control.
So many golden nuggets. This is amazing. Guys, wasn't this amazing? Unmute yourself. Isn't she great?
Oh, you're
fucking amazing. Thank you so much.
oh,
Thank you.
thanks guys for listening to me blab on, because I know I can just blab sometimes, so I appreciate it.
I'm giving you
Georganne, I'm like over your fist pumping.
yeah, she is.
Oh, I love
it.
Oh, you guys are awesome.
We say this stuff all the time, but it's like, it's cool to hear it from other people unprompted. Like,
Yeah.
you say whatever you believe and what you want to say, and it's not like, Georganne, say this.
Oh yeah.
What we say. Like, so it's
Totally.
it's really cool to, you know, just reinforce.
Yeah.
Add more. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I love the topics that you guys like hit on, because like those are some beliefs that have just stuck with me over the years, you know, that I've been doing this, of like your why and things like that. I think are so important, that, you know, those principles that you can't get away from. But thank you guys for the sweet messages. I'm reading some of them. That's so nice.
Your smile is really contagious, by the way.
Oh, thanks. I can say the same. I'm like, you guys are awesome.
Smiles in general are contagious, but there's some people that are like,
Yeah,
Oh,
for sure.
you
Man,
guys help me be more awake at this time, because usually if you ask anyone, like they're like, you have a what at 6 8, Georganne, are you gonna be okay? Like they're worried about. I'm like, guys, I'm really fine, because they know like I am just like not a morning person. So thank you for making this like fun, and like, you know, so I feel awake and I'm ready. Look at it's only 7. I'm ready to start my day. Like,
you've done so much.
yeah, I know. I'm like, yeah, this is cool.
amazing. It's been an honor and a pleasure, and we're just super grateful to, you know, get connected with you and really learn about your story, and, you know, learn all the golden nuggets that you guys had to say. I mean, I don't know if you guys took notes, but I took a whole bunch.
I love that.
So thank you so much for your time today. This was epic. It was so heartfelt. Like, what a great way to kick off, you know, Memorial Day weekend.
I have to
Thanks.
ask the question too, though. So you're also an ex-endurance athlete, but
I am.
The only question I have is, what is your favorite, if you could only choose one to take ever, only one?
Okay, I feel I have to do extreme endurance, because that just physically has just, I mean, I have to, you know what I mean? Because I mean, I don't go a day without that sucker. Like, I'm like, nope, 3 pills in the morning, 3 at night. Like, I don't miss a day. Yeah. I mean, that would have to be mine for sure.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a favorite? Do you guys take X Endurance? Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I worked for them in 2015 before
Oh,
the shifts happened. But I had a feeling you would say that because of the specificity of your sport. But
totally.
Right.
for somebody else, that might be a more difficult question. Like, oh my God.
Oh yeah, it is, because I'm like, I use everything. Like if I love Fuel 5. I love the new Focus. Like that is like my thing. Like I have mornings where I'm just like, we have morning practice and I'm like, I cannot. And it gives me that like alertness. I'm like, okay, I'm good. Let's do it.
I love it. What's your
Man, I was hoping to dodge the question.
She brought it back to you because I did forget. See?
Oh my gosh.
Mine is the Omegas.
Oh really?
Mm-hmm.
I like that they added the vitamin D.
Yeah, just from a holistic standpoint, like, you know, for one, it's such a potent, high grade omegas, and you know, I'm all about longevity. You know, I just want to feel and look this way like in 60 years. And if there's one product that can help with that, is that. But of course, I take like 8 of them.
Yeah. I like how I can just, sometimes I do that too. Like if I have really hard practice, I'm like inflammation, like I need double. And I'm like just doubling down on them.
Yeah. One bag is a serving.
Yeah. I'm like, give me all the omegas.
Yeah, I would probably choose the same for the same reason.
The Omegas?
Yeah.
But I mean, as an overall, inflammation is still a joint issue too.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
Anyways, that was a side question that was way longer than I.
Oh no, I don't mind.
Awesome.
All right, you guys. Thank you so much for showing up, each and every one of you. And thank you so much, Georganne, for waking up earlier for us. At the crack of dawn, for seeing the sunrise and dropping all these golden nuggets. We will stay in touch, everybody. By the way, for anybody listening, we will have an episode on Monday at 6:30, though it is Memorial Day weekend. Cool. Georganne, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you everyone again for the sweet words and everything. So I appreciate it.
You're a rock star. We appreciate it.
You're a rock star. This was fun. I enjoyed this a lot. So thank you.
All right, Mama.
All right. Bye, guys. Bye, ladies.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.